Hello and well met. Happy Saturday. This is Layron with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today, we'll be talking about themed encounters and getting some inspiration, perhaps with some AI tools or even content that you already own. So, using Fantasy Grounds version 4.8.3 and a various array of different types of online tools such as Canva, and I'm also using Suno AI for audio. I have a professional copy of Goldwave, which is an audio editor, and I'm also using other sources like ChatGPT. I'm using Grok, I'm using just about everything I can throw at you. So to start off this, what inspired me is I was making some sort of fantasy type audio thing, and I was inspired to create a kind of a snake themed sorcerer. So it started off as an image, so I can show you that, and let's see. So this is the image that that was generated actually from Sora, or Soya, whatever they call it. So this is a ChatGPT product, essentially. So this was the image. I thought that turned out pretty nice. I like the way it came out. It's kind of painterly. It looks fantasy. It's got this really cool, like cobra, like headdress hood thing, and she kind of looks like a Wanti or a Naga or something like that. So I thought this would be a really cool, cool inspiration, anyways, for creating content. So I really liked how that turned out. So then I kind of went, well, I want some kind of theme music for it. So this is kind of the music that I was generating. It's kind of more poetic, I guess, or seance.
Serpent spun from night, my scales weave curses, bending mortal sight, a sorceress of venom, my will carves the void, kneel to my power, or your souls destroy.
So anyhow, that's basically what we got there. So that came together kind of sporadically. I wasn't really planning on doing that, but it just kind of came together. So I was kind of inspired by an image, and then made the songs kind of poetic, kind of seance, kind of witchcraft thingy, and it just kind of started coming together. So I thought, how can I incorporate this into a game or into planning for an adventure, or perhaps you're going to build your own stuff, like your own modules or something like that. So anyhow, I have a new session here in Fantasy Grounds. So this is Fantasy Grounds version 4.83. The only real thing I have loaded here is the latest and greatest SRD, which is put out a month or two ago by Doug from Smiteworks. Thanks, Doug, for doing that. And then there is the Meanders map pack. So this is basically kind of themed for the adventure itself. So I thought these would be pretty well set for this type of setting. I thought of either a swamp or a desert. So I kind of went with the desert theme because it kind of has that Middle Eastern kind of, I guess, Indian type vibe for the music. And then I wanted to take and grab a map, or in this case, you can create a table, and then you have adventure seeds here. So it depends on what exactly you want to do with your adventures and such, but I always like having tables just in case I'm uninspired or I don't want to choose. I want to leave things kind of set, by the roll of a dice, set by fate. So what I would do here is Chris had made these from Meanders maps. Is essentially these are kind of a random dice roll, and I'm not sure how that happens. So 1 to 3, and then So that's strange. This 1 to 3, and then it skips to 1 to 2 and 3 to 4. So I don't know. Let's roll this and see what happens. So, okay, Hook Canyon overlook. So let's see what that is. So this is an image. Yeah, so that might work for her layer, for her, you know, for her, you know, for basically for her minions and such. You can use something like this. But anyhow, so that's kind of some of the inspiration. The other thing you can do in Fantasy Grounds is you have these dice here, and if you own some of the dice packs, or even if you just recolor them, that can really help with your theme. So I was thinking like a green with yellow text, or yellow with green. I think the green with yellow would kind of match better. So I'm going to click on dice, and what I want to do is, you know, get some inspiration from the setting or even from the theme that's already up. This is the core dark theme for Fantasy Grounds, so this isn't anything above and beyond. And then this decal in the background, we might want to do something about that. So maybe we can create a symbol or some sort of cool like decal that would go in the background. And then there's the NPC, and then, you know, so much stuff you can do, and it does take time and practice. So, you know, don't expect to do all this stuff in one fell swoop. It's taken me months to get to the point where I'm at, where I can comfortably use the tools and use them at my disposal and at my whim. Some of them are paid, some are free. It just really depends on what you're doing. So one of the things you can do is recolor the dice at the minimum. So even if you don't have the correct content or resources or even the dice sets, you can take the text here and just use the existing theme to recreate a color down here. So if I click on body, I can click on this eyedropper and use that as a way to theme these colors. So this kind of created this gray instead of black, but I kind of want to bump up the green a little bit. So I just slightly turned up the dial there on the green so that it has a little bit more of a greenish color instead of gray. And then I kind of back off a little bit on the red. And then I'm going to also, you want to click OK to make sure that it takes whatever settings that you've changed. If you don't, it'll default back to this black color. So I'm going to go ahead OK. And now for text. So I'm going to use this golden color here for the text. So I want to use the eyedropper again and just hover over something that's gold, like the fonts here, and just click that and hit OK. And there we go. So there's your green and yellow, right? That's just kind of a real basic theme. But if you have like the monster dice or anything like that, let's take a look at monster. And you could use something like this. Like this is grave dust. What's this? This is sludge. There's a flora, so like kind of like a swampy theme. There is fauna. There's this kind of glowing color. So you can do either effects-based dice or whatever you want. So in case, well, if you own the dice, that is. So let me look at the monster dice 2. See what we got there. So do we have serpent? That's what I'm kind of looking for. So there's Bloodstalker, there's Bones, Moonhowl, Chitinous, Scaly Doom. So that's pretty close. So I want to use the effects version of that. So there's Deep Lurker. That would work too, but let's check out the Scaly Doom. Yeah, so this one would work well for snaky type encounter. So if we use this, you know, this could be our sneaky doom thing. So that's pretty cool. And then, like, you know, you got this, it's got these little reptilian feet, and then like this kind of a snake looking eye here. So I think that's pretty cool. So that might work. So again, we're just kind of going over, like, trying to make your games a little bit more themed. So again, I was only using the SRD, and then I made this song, or kind of like a theme song for this encounter for this serpent woman. So I'm going to use Shutter Encoder to basically to convert a file so it can be used in Fantasy Grounds. So it's a short video clip, but it's not in the correct format. It's very important that you understand that, because there's a lot of people who want to use animation, and they want to use like you know, they want to use things like that to help them build like animated maps and such. So the big thing is you got to have the correct video format, and regardless of what video format you're going to be using initially, you want to make sure that it's a short video. You don't want anything over like 30 seconds, and then you got to kind of use a program to edit the video so that it loops properly. Otherwise, it's going to look weird. Like it's not going to look smooth. So there's that. And I don't know exactly how you would achieve that or what program, but I'm pretty sure people use third-party apps like Adobe Premiere, things like that to create these things. But I'm just going to use an image that I generated with Sora from ChatGPT. And this is something I did today to kind of inspire my work here. So we have the Serpent Sorceress. So this is a WebP file. So this is already in the correct image file format. So we're going to import both of those so you can kind of get an idea of how that works. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Sorceress. This is a short little animated video. And I loaded that into Shutter Encoder. And what you want to do is choose a function. So in this case, I want to go with VP8, because that's the format that you want to use for Fantasy Grounds. You can't use any other format. That's the only one that this particular application and the Unity engine. Now the other thing is audio. So a lot of the audio is embedded into the image or into the video, so you want to strip that out, and this will also reduce the size because Fantasy Grounds or the player thing doesn't support the audio. So what we're going to do is in audio settings, we're just going to click on none, no audio. So audio 1, audio 2, no audio. Okay, so that actually automatically cuts down the amount of size of the file. And even if there was audio connected to it, it's not going to play, or you're not going to hear it. And on top of that, even if the sound is with no volume on it, but it's still a sound file, it can create a file size. So like 1.37 is the megabytes for the sound. So that eliminates the file size by canceling out the audio altogether. And then the other important thing is there is a advanced features, and you want to enable the alpha channel. So if you were going to just have the image or the figure of the sorceress, the snake sorceress, without the background, let's say you had a different version of this, you'd want to enable the alpha channel. Otherwise, you're going to get the black or the white or the gray background. So in this case, I don't need to do that, but I wanted to show you that. So if you're using a token or something that moves around, you know, that's something you'd have to consider. But in this case, I don't need to use it because I have a background and I'm not trying to preserve the background. So, but that's another setting that you might want to use for like tokens. But as far as maps go, if you download them third party or you create your own, you might as well just cancel out the audio if you're going to use it with Fantasy Grounds, because it's not going to play. You're not going to hear it, and sometimes it doesn't even load the file. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and once you've changed the settings on there, now you're just going to click start function. Now you can do a batch file. So let's say you had like 4 or 5 of these you wanted to do at once. You could do that, but I recommend that you do it in bytes instead of all at once. So if you've got more than 10, let's say, it's going to take your computer a while to convert those. So do it in batches instead of one big one. I tried where I think I had like over 50, and it took like almost an hour. And on top of that, it was kind of hard on my system. So, and I have a pretty decent system. I don't have a super high-end computer, but I don't have an old boat either. I have kind of a middle of the road, but it made it cop. Now you can change the settings out here, the output settings, but I'm just going to leave that, and then I'm going to hit start function. So that's going to be, see, now it's made a copy here of the sorceress. So let me highlight or go over there. So there is, let's see, this is the WebM format, and it's VP8. So this will now be acceptable in Fantasy Grounds. So what I'm going to do here is close the encoder, And then I'm going to import this image into Fantasy Grounds in this campaign. So I want to go to Assets, Images, so make sure you click that first. Go to Folder, and what I'll do here is create some subfolders. So what I'm going to do is go to New Folder. I'm going to call this, I'll just say Art, I guess. And then if you're going to put other stuff in there, like maps, you could do that, or whatever you think, handouts, anything like that. So I am going to do one. I'm just going to call it decal because these will be background images. So later on, I might make a decal. But for the time being, for the art, I'm going to take the file that I just converted from my downloads folder and then drag it over to the art folder. So this is going to be an animated art, and then there's going to be a simpler kind of just an image. So it's both the same, just one's animated, one isn't. So we'll go ahead and close my folder there, close that, which was the subfolder under images, and now you need to hit refresh. It's very important. So when you add or take away or rename things in Fantasy Grounds, especially in files, be careful, because if it's already associated with something in your game, it may break the link to it. And also you want to refresh this, and for the first time you'll get this campaign folder kind of thing. And then under art, those are both the files, and that's a good sign. You'll see a little preview image, and then you'll see the image itself, like the basic image. So let me open that up. So if I want to create this could be my background decal if I wanted it to, but I don't want something that busy. But I think I'm just going to create a map record, which is an image record. And there you go. So there's the kind of the serpent, and there's the actual, I got this misspelled here. It's serpent instead of serpent. Serpent sorceress, we'll say sorceress. There you go. So there's just an example of, you know, if you wanted to add a little animation and share this with your players. So that's kind of up to you how you want to do that. And then here's just a static image. So this will just be for like a handout, or maybe you want to share this with your players, you know, and you don't want to use the actual animated one. Let's see. I wanted to add this. Create not that one.
I'll put them in the folder.
Let's do this one. So create a map record. Why is it doing that? Is it? Let's see. There's this. There's this. Let me go to images and go to uncategorize. Okay, here we go. Browser overlay. Serpent sources. Huh. Weird. It could be because of the file name. Let me go in and change that. So that's another thing you got to be careful. The file names need to be updated sometimes. Yeah, so they both have the same file name. That might be the issue. So, and then if you do that in the middle of the game, you want to update, and you might have to relink it. I'll say serpent sorceress underscore image. And this one will be serpent sorceress underscore vid. So that way I know the difference. I'm going to refresh this, and let's see what we get here. So create map record. Yep. Okay, so there's that. There's the video, and then create map record, and there's the static image. So yeah, that was what the issue was. They both had a similar name, or the same name, so adding that differentiation. So here we go. So here's the image itself. So if you don't have the fancy dice, you can technically use the colors off of the image to inspire whatever it is that you need for your game or for your dice. So if I went back to the dice menu here, and let's see, we'll just go back to the standard dice, regular main one, and then use that. This was our dice colors, but if you wanted to recolor them, you can go back to body, click here, and click on some of these colors on the actual serpent, on the sorceress here, and use those to theme your dice. So go text. I kind of like the text I have now. I might leave that, but you can use these colors here to inspire, you know, your fonts and such. So there you go. So you can use that to recolor it. But I'm going to go back to something else. So I'm going to go back to the Monster 2. I think that was, yeah, there we go. So there's the, like, the serpent type of dice. All right, so now you know you got this image here. You've got an animated image. Now, if you were going to create an NPC or something like that, the 5e rule set has a built-in importer for NPC stat blocks. The biggest or the most important thing on that is the formatting. If the formatting isn't correct, it's not going to import it correctly. And I've done lots of videos on this in the past. So you go to NPCs, and usually when I make a new item or an asset, like I should have with the images, I'm going to basically create a new group. So I would use the drop down. I'm going to click the add category and then edit, which is this little pencil button, and then I'll say serpent sorceress, just so I know what this is. And then I'll scroll down and click off of the edit, and there we go. So now when I create the sorceress, it'll be in its own group. So importing the text. So I'll go to my ChatGPT session that I have going on. So I don't know if you can see that very well, so I'll drag this over to the main screen, because I do have an overlay, but it may or may not actually give you what you need, or you're not able to see it very well. So I'm going to take the browser and,
Are you really fucking hungry?
and take that off. All right.
Nope.
And then take that, and then going to my Fantasy Grounds content, here's the conversation that I was in. And then what I want to do is take this information from here to create the stat block. And that's basically what I'll be doing here. So this is the stat block that's in the correct format. So this right here is close, or if not, the perfect kind of formatting for the importing tool. So what we're going to do here is put this here, and I think this summon serpents thing is going to have to get fixed. Yeah, because spell casting. So this summons serpents. Yeah, I think it'll be okay. We'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this for now, and then we're going to paste the stat block here. And then what I want to do is right click, and we're going to clean up the text. So this is what it will look like without all the spaces and such in it. And then on the right, we're going to put whatever extra information we want to put there. So we want to grab and take this information, and what we're going to do is go back to the prompt and to the information. So here's the information. So this is just extra role-playing, theming type stuff for your game. So if you were going to make a super big bad evil gal or evil guy, what we could do is do something like this, and then we'll make this a header. So I'm going to highlight this and hit Control-2. So that makes that a header. And then for these subheaders, I'm just going to make these bold. So highlight the text, Control-B does that. So this is just extra information. So like the appearance, tactics. So in this case, this will give the GM some ideas. So maybe they'll open with mage armor, mirror image, or darkness. To control the foes, she'll use charm person, hold person, or dominate person. She uses blur or greater invisibility defensively when needed. Calls her staff guardian or summons swarms to tip the battle. Falls back on dagger or bite when cornered. So she has a special magic staff. So we'll see if this actually parses correctly. And then I'm going to put summons, which will be links to stat blocks. So what we'll do is we'll use that for, like, if we want to, oops, we'll use that to help later on if we need to link those to make it easier when you play. So let's see if this actually parses correctly. So we'll hit import. Oh, I need to, this is another thing I forgot to mention, import mode. So I'm going to use the D&D core rules, or you can use the 2024 D&D Beyond, or if you're making a classic monster, you can use the 2022 format, which is the Monsters of the Multiverse format. A little bit different than the classic 2014 version. It just updated a few things, and this was kind of on their way to changing the rule set, so that's why there's so many options. So now we're going to hit import. Okay, so I'm going to look this thing over before I close that and make sure that it parsed correctly. So you'll know by looking at this when something's missing or broken, or they'll be in the wrong order. So humanoid sorcerer. It's kind of got a snake kind of thing going on. Chaotic evil, armor class 15. Hit points, damage, stressful. We're not using that. Poisoned, and she's immune to the poison condition, and she's resistant to poison, so she only takes half damage. It's got dark vision, passive perception of 11, common, draconic, and abyssal for language, a CR 7, proficiency bonus 3, XP 2900. That seems a little low, but I'll have to double check that. But she has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. That's a really big thing. That might raise this up to like 3,200. Charisma or spell casting. See this right here? This is broken. So you can't have an extraneous, like this thing here with these little dots, or this bullet point. That's going to break the parsing. So I think what I'm going to do is back those off. Oops. Yeah, so I want to back those out because that's basically trying to display a character that's unsupported. So it's really important that the formatting is correct. You can't have extra spaces and weird symbols and accents from other languages to set. So here's another thing. It did not use the correct apostrophe. It used another symbol that was not ISO, whatever. See here, it did it again. So hyphens, apostrophes, dashes, those sort of things you got to watch out for. So this is supposed to be, I'll just say snake bite instead of snake's bite. It's that way to help avoid that. And then you want to look at the rest of it and make sure. So she can summon, also, it's not 1d2 swarms of poisonous snakes, but here's the recharge, 5 through 6. It did not use the proper hyphen. So whatever the language font that it's using, it's not right. So you got to kind of make sure that those are correct. So that is basically, I think this will work. And we're going to test it on the combat tracker. So when you're done, you can go back and look. So there's notes right here. So there's the notes that I had imported. And then here's a little table that shows that. So this looks okay in this description, but it's not going to work in the parsing. So just kind of let you know that. See, it worked here, but this isn't quite the same apostrophe as the apostrophe that it imported from ChatGPT. So you got to watch that. So I think in my prompt, I'm going to make sure that it uses the correct ISO character format. Otherwise, you're going to get errors. Let's see. So it's usually the quotes, the apostrophe, the semicolons, the hyphen, the dash, whatever. Those things got to be right. And it sometimes from PDFs or from other sources, you're going to get whatever the author or whoever published it, whatever they decide to use for characters. And some countries use different character sets, and then those are not compatible, unfortunately. All right, so that's the stat block. So I only had to make some minor adjustments. And since I have the art, a little bit of artwork anyways, that's the flat generic token. for this image here, I can take this and I can create or add. So I'm going to go to my campaign here, go to art, and I'm going to use the static image. And so we're going to use that. So let's see if it'll work. Yep, there we go. So that's the image that I can share for the sorceress, and then we'll make a token for her. So I'm going to erase the generic one, and we can even have a camera token if we want. So that's kind of brings us to life. So you got the snake colored dice, you got the image. I mean, I made a whole song out of it. So if you missed this early on, I'm not going to play the entire song. That's too much. But earlier I made a song if you missed the beginning of the video. So this was the little theme song that I'd made. So it's kind of a seance kind of thing. Anyways, you get the idea. So there was a song for, let's say you're going to do a stream, or you wanted to play it before your session starts, or maybe at the end of the game, you know, something like that. So there's lots of things you can do to make this encounter a lot more interesting, custom, and also, you know, kind of creative somewhat. So then what I'm going to do is take that, and I'll bring up ChatGPT again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to make the staff. So let me take a look at this. So snake staff right here. So this is the damage, but then it was supposed to actually, the staff was supposed to like turn into like a guardian. So I want to say, say something like this. So create the lore and item stat block, because I kind of want to create the actual item in case someone takes it or steals it or want to sell it. And I want to say include the lore and the, I'll say 1 times per day feature that the staff can change into a large guardian or something snake. So it's going to be a good sized snake, and when she lays the staff down, she just has to will it. So at will. It does require attunement if you're going to grab it, so it requires attunement. That's something that you might have to put in there if you're going to make an item out of it. So items are kind of a pain in the butt to create, but I want to see what this comes up with. So that's just kind of for inspiration, and also to help you with designing and making it faster, so you're not having to type this whole thing out. So here's the lore. So it's a weapon, quarterstaff. It's rare, requires attunement. Forged from the bones of a primordial serpent and bound with obsidian, the serpent staff is both weapon and living relic. Hisantha used it as a holy symbol of her cult, so it's kind of like her casting focus, I guess. Claiming it carried the blessing of the first serpent born beneath the sun. The staff hisses faintly when drawn, and venom beads form along its head like dew. Legends say the staff remembers every bearer. Those unworthy are poisoned by its touch, while those chosen can call forth its guardian spirit, a great serpent that fights until dismissed or destroyed. So the staff can be wielded as a magic quarterstaff. You gain +1 to bonus and attacks. On hit, the staff deals an additional 1d6 poison damage. So serpent's bite. When you strike a creature with a staff, you may cause its fang tips to lash out. The attack is unchanged, but on a hit, the target will take an extra d6 of poison. The Guardian transformation. So once per day, the wielder can set the staff upright on solid ground and speak a command word. The staff transforms into a giant constrictor snake under the wielder's control. The snake remains for 1 hour until reduced to 0 hit points or until dismissed as a bonus action. When the effect ends, the snake vanishes and the staff reappears in the wielder's hand or at their feet. So it does require attunement. Would you like me to create the stat block? Yes. So yes, I want it to create the stat block. So the way I have this thing trained, this particular ChatGPT, is it's for Fantasy Grounds content, and I've uploaded templates and I've uploaded, you know, examples of the output that I want. So I want to make a, you know, like a stat block for the Guardian. So this is what I'm saying. If you want to link it to the back of the NPC, you want to make the NPC first, or at least find one. So it's a CR2 giant constrictor snake with a poison bite upgrade to match the serpent staff's flavor. Pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to do this. So I'm going to copy this stuff here, and hopefully these. What I got to find out. What does Fantasy Grounds need for text? Fantasy Grounds supported text format. I forget. Let's see. Is it ISO? Let's see. So there is okay. Classic use that. Okay, let's take a look at this. Okay. So this is from Moon Wizard. So all character codes in the range 128 to 259 are technically control characters in ISO, which is specified in FGC, which is classic. This issue is FGC didn't care about encodings and just spat them out. Okay, it says UTF under the hood. So this was older, but let's see, therefore all FLC content needs to be updated. Okay, so I'm gonna actually just copy this text. And I'm gonna put that into ChatGPT so it knows what I'm talking about. So say double check the text characters for formatting. So this is the thing you're going to run into with like PDFs, because everyone uses something different. It's weird. You would be amazed by how many times I've come across this where you're trying to copy and paste something and all of a sudden it doesn't work, and it's like because of one little stupid hyphen or a, you know. Yeah, so it's a great point. This is exactly the sort of thing that can break right now. So ASCII grave, okay, to take it safe for both Fantasy Grounds, we need to replace those ASCII safe equivalents. All right, so we'll see what happens. If you want this, we can normalize. I'll just say just for FGU, because I don't need it for Classic. Yes, redo the step block accordingly. So I'm going to ask it to redo it just in case, because I don't want to go through that, having to update it every time. So if you accordingly, you know, create, when you do your commands for your project files, you may want to include that. So I might go in and add the actual, you know, the syntax or whatever is required. That way it doesn't just use whatever it feels like, you know. That's kind of what ends up happening. Okay, so this is the snake sorceress. Okay, we didn't want that, but that's fine. It redid her stat block. Let's say yes. So I wanted to do the snake guardian. So that's the next step. And then we're going to do the snake swarm, but I don't think we have to make custom. I think it might already exist. So while that's doing its thing, let's go into here, into NPCs. Let's go to all, and let's do a swarm. Because she can summon 1 or 2 swarms. Swarm of venomous snakes. There we go. So yeah, we don't have to create that. But what I'll do is I'll make a copy. So making a copy of this, you just left click and drag, and now you have a copied version. So it's no longer a part of the SRD. It's, you know, unique to this campaign. And then I'll drop this down to show all the groups, and I'm just going to drag this title. I didn't select anything here, but what I'm going to do is drag this copy version over to the Serpent Sorcerer section. And then what I'll do here is, instead of copy, I'll put summons. So I'll know what this is for. So when she summons snakes, this is the stat block for that. And this, you can do this for yourself as a game master or a game designer or content creator to make it easier on the GM. So what I'm going to do is put swarms of snakes. And I believe it was 1 to 2. Oops, I don't want to mess with this. I'm going to close the importer. I got to edit the stat block itself. So go to notes, come down here, unlock. I'm going to put summons down here. And then what we'll do is make that bold. Actually, I'm going to make this, I'm going to highlight this into something like that. The header. And then what we'll do is we'll take the swarm and link it back here. And the reason we're doing that is to make it more, I guess, more convenient, I guess, for GMs. Why does that look weird? There we go. So that's one of them, and then we'll have the big poisonous snake linked here too. So if she transforms the staff, we have it there. We just have to remember she can't use the staff. She has to basically command the snake itself. So we're going to go back to ChatGPT and take a look at what it spit out here. So there's the serpent staff, and here is the guardian snake. But does it have the poisonous bite? Yes, it does. So that's the only thing it changed pretty much, was it added this little info section, but then it added the poisonous bite upgrade. So what we're going to do is copy this text, go back to Fantasy Grounds, and close or minimize this. What you can do is, if you're working on something and you don't want to lose it, drag this link down to the hotkeys. So when you close it, you don't looking for it. You know, you can just come right to it. So now I'm going to go and grab this import tool again and hit Control V to paste it, and then right click and clean up text just so you can see what it's going to look like without all the spaces and such in it. And then there's a little section here for the information. So it has the appearance, it has the tactics, and it has the if there's any lore, it'll put that in there. But in this case, it doesn't have any. So what I'm going to do is go back to Fantasy Grounds and put that little section up here. And again, I'm just going to highlight it, give it a little bit of formatting so it's not so plain. It stands out a little bit better. And we'll see if it worked. So import, oh, I forgot to do the import mode. So if you close this, you're going to have to reselect the import mode every time. So I got to remember not to close it, just to clear it. So there's the import mode, hit import, and there we go. So instead of giant constrictor snake, I'm just going to put summon. And I'll put giant guardian snake. I'm not going to put anything else, so that'll work. And see, here's the languages. It didn't use the right character. You can see this messed up area right here. So it doesn't have any languages, so we'll leave that. Did it have any other goof ups here? So yeah, here, the snake can't constrict another creature. It needs the correct apostrophe. So that's annoying. I mean, that's something that's not too bad to fix that little thing, but sometimes it'll break the import. So you got to watch that. It's unaligned, it's beast, it's large. Notes, so it looks pretty good here. But see, for the can't part, this little apostrophe works in the text area, but not in the parsing tool. I got to see if that's a bug or if they can fix that. Let's see, mod save. Yep, it looks right. So we could add artwork to this. So let's go back and let's check that out. So I want artwork for the staff and I want artwork for the snake. I don't care about the snake swarm, really. We could, but I don't think that is as critical as that. So let's see. Oh, we forgot the item stat block. So what I can do with that, this is kind of a pain in the butt, but you're going to have to learn how to do this. There is no quick way to do this. Really isn't. So what we'll do is, if you're going to make an item in Fantasy Grounds, and the only reason I would do this because it's an epic item. If it was just a +1 snake staff, I would just use a +1 staff, and that's what I'm going to do to start off as my template. So I'm going to go to items, and what I want to do is we'll go with staff, and we'll see what it comes up with, because it's kind of like your basis. Quarterstaff, yeah, so we want a +1 quarterstaff. So what I'll do, instead of recreating this whole thing, I'm just going to make a copy of the quarterstaff and then open it up, unlock it, and now I can edit it. So I'm going to say snake staff +1. Simple melee weapons, we're going to change this to rare. And in parentheses, we have to put requires attunement, because we don't want just anyone picking it up. They got to spend some time with it. I think for the cost, I think I'm going to go up. This is 4,000 silver, so let's go with 7,500 silver. There we go. The weight is going to be, maybe it's 1 extra pound because it's got the big snake head, the golden snake head on it. Mastery is topple, and properties, I don't know if we want to put poison here. I don't know, I'll just put it in there in case. Okay, so this part here, I'm going to take that out and place the content from ChatGPT in there. So what we're going to do is take this, take the lore, the properties, and this information, and we'll copy and paste that into Fantasy Grounds, into the item description. So there's the description. I'm going to right click, clean up the text. Then we'll use this as a header, and then we'll use that for the properties, and then we will bold these parts because these are the main features. Yep, add an extra 1d6 poison damage. So you might have to add a little bit of coding or syntax to your sheet if you had a player that was going to use this. And then for pictures, I thought we already, oh, we don't need that yet. Okay, so that's basically the gist of that. Now let's see what we can do. So we can lock this now. And what I'll do here is this staff thing, I'm going to make a new group. We're going to edit the name of it, set a group 1. And we'll just say Snake Sorceress, so I know what it goes to. And select that. Or actually, I don't need to select it. Let's see. So we want to go to all, I'm going to go to uncategorized. Okay, open this up, and I'm going to drag the snake staff into that group. That way, when I'm using this, I'm able to know where it is easier, and I can find it. And I just made that as a contingency. I didn't have to make it. You know, I could have just done it all through the stat block or most of it, but it makes it more complete. So if for some reason your players defeat the snake sorceress and they want the staff for some reason, there we go. At least to sell it, you know. But it'll poison you if you pick it up, I guess. But it doesn't really say that here, but you can make that up as you go, kind of thing. I kind of left that for the GM. I don't want to give them everything. You know, they got to make up some of their own stuff. But anyways, this requires attunement and that sort of thing. So that's the item in a nutshell. So I just made that a magic weapon. I used a +1 quarterstaff as my template, and I just added some stuff to it. I adjusted the weight, the cost. I added the rarity with the requires attunement, and there, so on and so forth. But so your player can pick this up and use it or sell it or whatever. So that could be like part of a treasure too. So that's something that it's kind of up to you, like how you want to deal with that. But anyhow, do we have the snake already? Yes. So I want to get rid of swarm. Okay, so here's the Santha, here's the guardian snake, here's the swarm. So here's the guardian snake. And technically, I'd want to add the artwork, the tokens and all that before you link it or add it to an encounter. Because what happens is if you put this on the combat tracker to test it, you're going to want to remove it, because what will happen is it will... Here, I'm going to actually minimize this. Let's see. Yeah, anyways. What will happen is it won't pull over the changes. So anytime you change something on the main stat block, you're going to have to change your encounters more than likely, and anything on the combat tracker too. So if you do this midstream, it's not going to pull in the changes that you made to the main stat block. So you have to, you know, go back and fix everything. So it's better to get it all done up front before you actually import it, and, you know, before you actually link it to anything. But in this case, what I was going to do is take this snake guardian, because this is going to be from the staff, and then link it down here where I had the summons at. So unlock the back there, the sheet, and hit enter, and you see it creates this little bubble here. That's where you would put the link. Or if you want to do it without that, you can hit Control-1 and change it to regular text, and then drag it over. But in this case, so these are the two main summons that you'll need when you run this NPC. You'll need the guardian snake, and you'll need the swarm of venomous snakes. So she can summon 1 to 2. You know, I think it's with a recharge of a 5 and 6. So summon serpents, recharge 5 to 6. Santha summons 1d2 swarms of poisonous snakes that obey her for 1 minute before dispersing. So those are just like an extra feature attack that she can do. And then she has some at will. So she has poison spray, minor illusion, charm person, darkness, mirror image, fear, and hold person. And then she has her snake bite. So she has a natural snake bite. And then she has her serpent staff. And then she has a poisonous dagger too. Let me change this to serpent staff, because it's a snake staff, so I want it to match. Serpent staff. Okay, so there we go. And then she has a regular sorcerer spells. So she has like mage hand. I don't know why she has ray of frost. That seems kind of weird. But anyways, mage armor, shield, magic missile, you know, the stuff that she can use in a pinch. But I think most of the time she would just use her innate abilities and then rely on her spells later. Like maybe she'll use Dominate Person or one of these other ones, but burn more of her spell slots, you know, make them more powerful. Stinking Cloud, Counterspell, Misty Step, Blur, you know, so most of them are utility or protective. But I might change this Ray of Frost. I don't know. That seems unthematic. I don't see that as being one of her spells for some reason. Anyways, it's just being picky. All right, so that's that. So when you're done with your NPC, see, I don't have a token yet either. So I might want to make a token and, you know, put that in there. And that way, when you go to add it to your encounter or the stat block to the combat tracker, it'll have that, and you don't do it midstream. But I'm going to just go ahead and check the record itself to make sure it parsed. So I put her stat block on the actual, put the stat block on the actual combat tracker. And now I click the offense, and what you'll see here is a spell casting. And then some of the actions here. Here's the innate spell casting. So that's just, here's the bite, the snake staff itself. There's the summon serpents. And that has a recharge of 5, so it means on a 5 or a 6 each round it will reset. And then here's the effect for the poison, the extra damage if you use the serpent staff. There we go. So let's look at her sheet and pull this down, right click. I think, see what it says, parse NPC spells. So if you right click, it should parse them. Let me unlock this to see if that works. So right click, parse NPC spells. And now I'm going to remove it off of the combat tracker and see if that changes anything. I don't remember. Oops. Combat tracker. Anyways, this is how you test your NPC stat blocks. So Santa, right click, parse the spells, lock the sheet, drag it onto the combat tracker. Yeah, okay. So anyways, that's basically your stat block. And you want to make sure that the spell casting statement is correct and that it's going to parse correctly and all that good stuff. All right, and then on the back here, I had the summon, so it makes it easier. So when you go to use this NPC, it's right there. So like in the middle of combat, you can just pop up the sheet and drag it over to the combat tracker, or you can even make an encounter. So you can make an encounter with 1 to 2 as the range. So if you went to encounters, let's say, and we're going to build this encounter, and this is going to be like we'll say final battle. Okay, so this may be a separate entry or it could just be the only one. So final battle. So we're going to put Isantha, the actual sorceress, and then perhaps some of her summons. So, and we're going to change her faction here to hostile. So we could do that and just leave it like this, or we can even add the venomous snakes. But in order to do that, we have to assume it's 1 or 2. So if it's going to be a random roll, we're going to want to do a random encounter. And what we're going to do is add that, and we'll say snake swarm. Oops. And then what we'll do is we'll take this venomous NPC stat block, drop it there, and what we're going to do is say 1d2. And then these are going to be hostile. And if you wanted to replace the artwork and such, you can from here, but it's not permanent. So if you want to make sure if you have nice artwork you want to do all that up front when you do your stat blocks. So anyway, so snake swarm. So now when I generate this, it's going to pick whether it's 1 or 2. So there's 2 right there, there's 1 right there. So that's random. So what you might do, instead of using the stat block on the actual make this an encounter instead of just a stat block. So we'll take this and we might use the encounter, the random encounter, instead of the stat blocks. So that might even be better. So what we'll do is we'll take the summons out of here, which is just the NPC record. and we will add the actual encounter instead. That'll be more useful to a GM. And then same thing with this. So we'll make another encounter, but this will have the big snake, and it doesn't need to be random. This can just be a regular encounter. So what we'll do is get rid of this, get rid of that. Okay, and then we're going to add the, I suppose that's the snake guardian, I guess. And all we have to do with that is just add the stat block. So that's nothing fancy. Swarm of snakes, guardian snake. There we go. So now it's a full encounter, you know, and you can just drop it in a combat tracker instead of having to do it manually. So I'll just take and drag and drop this link, and there we go. So that makes it more useful, and then you can, you know, use that to your heart's content there. So that's just some ways that you can actually, you know, make your game a little bit more interesting and have it at your fingertips and not just digging through everything trying to look for stuff. Especially when you're doing homebrew and your own content, it's really difficult sometimes. And if you're not familiar with the content, like you don't know where the stat blocks are, or you're not familiar with Fantasy Grounds, it can be a real bummer sometimes. So what I want to do is go back to ChatGPT and finish this video off with a little bit of imagery. So I'm going to say create the image, create an image prompt, text prompt for the guardian snake transparent background. So we'll see what it comes up with. So this is just to generate the text so that you will create a more consistent and thorough image text prompt. If you just tell it to create the snake, it's not going to have the parameters necessarily that you want. So you want to make a kind of a template for image generation, so that way there's more consistency. So I'm going to say yes. So it asks, would you like me to make a top-down token prompt of the guardian snake? Simplified, sharp outlines, high contrast. I'll say yes. So I do want the additional prompt, because that way I can make the snake and then the top-down kind of token view. So hit Control V. So this is just for the snake itself, more for like an art thing. Generate an image, I guess. So this would be your flat token. You can put this in, I'll probably put this in, or I can do the same thing here. I can just cut this out, make this a token. You kind of want it to match the existing art, so you can upload that image and ask it to make a token out of it. I might do that. And you got to give the token parameters too, like do you want an outline, what color the outline is, you know, that sort of thing, so you get the right shape and you get the right context for that image. So this takes a little bit to create images now. If you use ChatGPT 3 or 4, it used to be a lot faster at creating images, but the accuracy and the capability was a little less. Now that the ChatGPT 5 and 4.5, they increased the usability, of image creation. A lot of times it'll give you that painterly effect. So if you want something more like comic book, or you want it to look more like a photo, you need to give it some context and maybe an example picture or a photo. So that really helps it a lot, because then it knows roughly what you're looking for. So far, just this little preview here, I like the way it's looking. So this would be a good image to share with your players and use that for like the stat block for the main image. And then we'll have it create the actual the top-down token. We'll see how that turns out. Those are kind of hit and miss. It's still very difficult to create those with Fantasy Grounds or with ChatGPT because of the nature of the description and how you go about explaining what you're looking for. So it's a kind of a, I don't know. Sometimes it'll make like a 3D version, which is okay, I guess. Okay, so that's not bad. I have to say, I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to hit copy image. And then I go over here to, this is Canva. I kind of use this as my placeholder. So I'm just going to say add page, and then I'll put the snake here. And this is already at 1024 by 1024 in dimensions. So if I want to make a token out of it later, I can. But that looks pretty sweet, I have to admit. That's pretty nice. So what I'm going to say is, I'm going to take that prompt. It says, would you like me to make a token variant? Full body illustration? No. Let's see. Top down, here we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is say using the image above for color and style reference, comma, I'll say create a top-down drone view fantasy token of a guardian snake. Its scales are model green, black with faint yellow stripes, blah, blah, blah. Simplified for clarity at small scale, sharp outlines, high contrast. And I want to say a thin golden oh, this is for the top down, so not. So this is like an isometric 3D type view. So I'll leave that. Let's see how it turns out first. Yeah, I really like how that snake turned out. That was sweet. Sometimes it'll make cool stuff, and other times, I don't know. Sometimes it just doesn't. Look, it even has poison dripping out of its mouth. It has the forked tongue. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. Good enough for, you know, homebrew game, you know. If I was gonna put it in a product, I would probably put it in Photoshop and like maybe add some more lighting and changes and details and use it as kind of like your textures and such and that sort of thing. But in this case, it'll work. So it's going to try to make a 3D top-down view, which you can use if you want. You know, if instead of having a regular token, you can use top-down 3D kind of tokens. Or in this case, you know, if you want to put it in Sora, maybe make an animated version of it. I don't know how well it will do, but let's see what this looks like from the top. So for a large creature, the dimensions for this, if you're going to look at it from looking from the top down, is going to be 512 by 512. So that's the token size that you'd want. Yeah, that's not bad. That's pretty close. Yeah, so I'll download that. And I'm going to download this thing. And then I'm going to make a token. So what is a token? I'm going to make a round token. So I want to say using the attached image, create a rounded token with a golden border of the snake above, but mostly just its face and its forked tongue extends slightly past the golden border. So I kind of want it to you know, have that, I don't know how you'd say it, fork tongue attached. I'm gonna fix that. We'll see. Create, I'll say create an image text prompt. Okay, so we'll see what it does. So I'm kind of using the context of the previous image, but you can only do that a few times before it starts losing focus. Like it'll have like 70% of the traits that you want. And then if you say it again, then it's going to use like 50%. And as you get further away from the original image, it gets to be less and less like the original. So you have to constantly post the new image or the original image just in case, because after about 2 or 3 iterations, I noticed that it starts losing the context and it just gets out of whack and it doesn't even look the same at all. So if you're looking for consistency with color, with the art style or the image style, and then, you know, you want those sort of things to make it to where it looks close. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to be close. And I think so far it's been okay. So I don't know if this stuff is helpful to you guys. I mean, I like doing it because it's just fun. It just inspires me to want to write adventures and run games and such. I don't know about you guys, but being able to do this like this rapidly, like I've been kind of chatting here for about an hour. I mean, I think in a weekend I could knock out a pretty decent like 3-chapter adventure with art, tokens, everything. I think that's really cool. That's not something you could do before. When I was making content before, I had to consider, you know, commissioning. I don't have a problem with that. You know, it is kind of costly, but it takes months and weeks, and I don't necessarily have that time to wait. So that's the main reason I use, like, you know, generative AI tools, because it's just so much quicker. I don't have to sit there and wait. And if you're only going to use this a couple times, I mean, what's the point, you know? But if you're going to do like a big commercial product, you may want to at least have the cover done and some of the artwork by an actual artist and not just AI, because people are going to know and some people don't like it. So it's kind of up to you. But I think that having the cover art would be important to the artist. So I'd give them these images and say, look, these are AI images. If you don't mind using these as your color palette and get a general gist of the style I'm looking for. And if you can emulate that, fine. If not, you know, do your own thing. But I would give them artistic freedom. I wouldn't force them into. So that's not too bad. I kind of wish I would have said to leave the background, but that's pretty cool. So I can fix that, or I can just ask for it again. But nonetheless, that's pretty cool. So I'll download that. So now you have a 3D token, you have a top-down token, you got, okay, so you see, this is cool. And then let's say create the image text prompt for a chaotic swarm of snakes. I wasn't going to do this, but I want to see how it comes out. The swarms are kind of interesting. So you have artwork, you have handouts, you have generated images, you have, you know, all kinds of different things you can do. I think I wanted to do the snake staff. That's one thing I want to make sure that I do that before we leave. So do you want to do a top down? I'll say yes. I do want to do the top down also, just in case. But I want to see what this looks like. Just a regular image, full body image of the snake swarm. So it's going to look at your previous work, the conversations, the art or the images that you upload. Even like if you uploaded like a PDF that was a short adventure, I think it would take that pretty well and put some images to it. So let's say you downloaded a short, you know, when I say short, I'm talking like less than 10 pages, like an adventure, it could do quite a bit for you and even expand on it and everything else. So that way you can kind of customize it, but still have the basis of the story, and then, you know, kind of use it to your own heart's content without being stuck with, maybe relegated with certain maps or, you know, some black and white images. Maybe you want color, you know, that sort of thing. So it might help you, like if you're going to take like a small adventure and convert it to Fantasy Grounds, this would be a good way to do that. I wouldn't necessarily do a large project. Those are really hard to stay consistent. I mean, you could do it, but it would take a lot of effort and almost more than it's worth. But I think just using short little chapters or adventures would work better. So if you had an adventure that had like 3 chapters, probably do that, like a one-shot. But anything beyond that, it gets a little bit harder to do. And, you know, I have templates and ways to manage it, you know, like making 1 chapter per project, but it just starts losing focus after, you know, about half a dozen things. And that's because it starts running out of memory, like token memory, and it forgets things after a while. It's a lot better than it used to be. I'll tell you what, it was so frustrating a couple of years ago. I was trying to do pretty much the exact same thing, and it just pissed me off. I hated it. I was like, this is stupid, you know. But I stuck with it. I kept practicing, keeping up with the changes, you know. And I was using it for other things like writing and like for social media posts and stuff. But then I'd always come back to doing fantasy content. And I always thought that it would be good for like homebrew or something like that, you know. Maybe not commercial stuff, but definitely for your own games at home and such. I mean, no one's going to complain about that too much. Oh yeah, that is super cool. So I don't know what you guys think, but that turned out pretty good. So I would use that as my snake swarm image that I would share with the players, you know, when she summons that swarm. So let's take a look at that staff. So using the context above, create an image of the, what did it say, onyx or obsidian? I don't remember, of the magic snake staff, transparent background, just in case you want to use it in other places. I wouldn't mind having a background, but I want the image itself, and then I can put it in any background I want. That's the other thing, is the newer features of having this become transparent right off the bat saves you a lot of time. You can make things transparent pretty quickly with Canva. Like if you had a background, it'll do a pretty good job taking all that stuff out. But you know, so I might use this for her, you know, for like a 3D or whatever, when you use the 3D isometric view, because that'll work pretty nice for that. So this is just the auxiliary stuff, right? You don't have to have all this stuff. It's just nice to have images to go with your main pieces in your project. Like this is a major weapon, so this I'd go the extra mile for, but if it was just a +1 staff, I wouldn't care. But this actually is a snake staff. It has lore. The big bad evil guy or girl uses it. You know, it could be a traded item or a cursed item. You know, there's so much stuff that you can do with this. It's just endless. I could sit here for 10 hours and, you know, just make content, man. It's crazy. Not at once. I mean, I'd do like maybe 3 hours, take a break, do some stuff with the family, come back, do another 4, you know, and then maybe the next day do another couple hours. But that's kind of the weekend. I was saying, if you wanted to make a content in a weekend, you probably could. If you are disciplined and you know what you're doing as far as Fantasy Grounds goes, and you kind of have a good handle on AI tools, that it could really put out some work, I think, without, you know, waiting for 6 weeks to a year for artwork and all the other stuff. That to me is, I'm impatient about that, unfortunately. I just don't have the money nor the patience to you know, to justify that cost and waiting. I mean, if I did a big Kickstarter and I wanted to maybe add that on as a I don't know. I'd have to think about how to do it because you don't want to piss people off. You do the wrong thing, you know. But I would want to probably up the Kickstarter goal, like maybe get a paid artist to do the renderings or use AI. You know, start off with the AI stuff and then tell them that, you know, the people who contribute, like if you guys want to contribute to get real artwork done by an author, there's a higher end like pledge or whatever that you can subscribe to, and we'll substitute out all the artwork for the, or most of it, for the cover and for the main pictures and the tokens and stuff. So, you know, I think that would be a cool option because they're getting the main stuff, but then if they want the extras, you know, that like a beautiful map and some art, you know, that may be a stretch goal or something. So if you're going to do that, that might be a thing. Not too bad. I mean, it's kind of generic, but this will do the trick. So if you're going to put this in your campaign, you can link it to the item so that when the players ask about the staff or they get it in their inventory or whatever, they can see this image and get an idea of what it's like. So that's pretty cool. So I take all those images from ChatGPT, and this is kind of a final word, I guess. I keep saying, oh, this is the last thing. This is the last thing. Okay, well, this is going to be one of the last things. I say one of them. Pretty soon this becomes a 5-hour show. But anyways, I would take, first of all, I would make a new folder. And then I would say sorceress, we'll say snake, sorceress. And what I'll do is put all the images in that folder, and then once I have them all in there, see, that's WebM, that's that. Then what I would do is probably take and rename these, because right now it says GPT. So what I would say is say Guardian. Oh, actually, I want to say 3D underscore Guardian Snake. And then I would say TKN underscore Guardian Snake. And then this would be, I don't know what this is, just will be art. So I just rename it as, I'll say art underscore snake swarm. And this will be art underscore serpent staff. Something like that. And when you start getting into these naming conventions, that way, when you go to put this in the Fantasy Grounds, it's organized and it's not all over the place. So I'll show you kind of what I mean. So I'm going to hit actually, to make these smaller and not so, like, this isn't bad. Like, let's see how big this folder is before I go on here. So what I want to do is right click and go to properties, and that's about 8 megabytes. So that's not bad. I mean, that's pretty good, but if you got a lot of artwork, that adds up pretty quick. And most modules in Fantasy Grounds are around 100 megabytes. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is transfer speed, and the other is the file size. So when you go to download them and update your campaigns and such, you don't want that to take forever, especially from between Smiteworks and the customers. Like, they don't want to have gigabytes of information and take you, you know, an hour to download everything. So what you do in this case, or what you can do, is I can open it with, like, I guess I'll use what is that, GIMP. So I want to use GIMP, and I have 2 versions, so that's 3 point. Yeah, so I'm going to use the older GIMP because I have a batch conversion. So I'm going to hit File, and then batch image manipulation, which is basically the basically a plugin. And then you can add images, and the manipulation set is like what do you want to change. So I'm going to go to change format and compression, and I'm going to click on WebP, and they recommend, they meaning Fantasy Grounds, is 75%. So that's just all it's going to do is change the format. And then what I need to do is click on the output folder, and I need to navigate it to the Snake Sorceress folder. Okay, and we're going to use that, and we're going to add images, add folders, and I'm going to say the Snake Sorceress thing. So it's going to take the images in that folder, convert them to WebP, and then it'll be in the same folder, the output folder. So go ahead and hit apply. And like I said, if you only got like half a dozen images, no big deal. But if you've got like a ton of artwork, this may take a little while, depending on the size and the quality. So that's another thing, like I was saying earlier when we did the video conversion thing, you don't want to do huge projects, especially on one computer. If you got two computers, then fine, you can just use one for rendering and such and use another one for your work, but most of us don't have that. So now I'm going to hit close. I'm going to close GIMP, and now what we have here is I'm going to sort by type, and what we have is, this is PNG, and then this one is WebP. So I'm going to take these four and delete them because they're too big, or I don't need them anymore. And then what you can do here is, that other file folder was like 8 megabytes. Now it's like 651 kilobytes. So that's like that's like half a megabyte. So that's the difference in compression. That really only helps with file transferring between you and your players, and then your download speeds from like the server to you. So if you made a module on the Fantasy Grounds Forge, it would take a lot less time to upload it and a lot less time to update or to download the content from Fantasy Grounds. If you use really high-end PNG files and such, it's going to take a lot longer, especially if you have a ton of images. All right, so I'm going to take the files from here, and I'm going to copy these. And within Fantasy Grounds, I would go to your Assets folder. And then what we'll do, let me see, I'll bring ChatGPT up, but I'm going to move that over here so you guys don't have to see that. And let's see, what we'll do is go to folder, and now this is the images folder, so I'm just going to paste this in here. And so you have the 3D Guardian snakes. I need to make a new folder. So this is going to be the 3D NPCs or props or whatever. I'll just say NPCs, that's fine. So if you want the NPCs to have that extra artwork so you can use it in the side view or the isometric view, and any of the artwork is going to go into art. So art goes in there. I don't have the decal yet, but this token, I want to cut this, and what I want to do is go to the upper level of themed encounters, and what we'll do here is we'll click on tokens, click on folder, and now I'll paste that. Now we have a separate folder for tokens. And then when you make changes like that, you always want to hit this refresh folder. So now you have the campaign folder with the token in there. So this would be what I would put on the stat block. So if I add the token now to the stat block, it's not going to update the combat tracker. So I'd have to go to NPCs, And then you want to go to the guardian snake. Instead of having this letter G now, I'm going to unlock, go to pictures, and we can add the artwork that I just created. So now that they're added to the campaign, I can go to assets, go to image, well, the tokens thing, I'm going to put this here for the flat token. And then go to images, campaign, art, and if you had the artwork, you can put it there, and this would be the token camera, but it's not the right size, it's not scaled for this particular camera image. So what I want to do is go in and go to campaign and go to images and maybe just use the regular art or something like that, you know. So it just depends on what you're doing. So maybe I'll just use that. That's good enough. But I would think the picture should have background to it, but that's good enough. And then what you'd want to do with this thing is scale it properly so that it looks right in Fantasy Grounds. If you just use a generic image like this, it may or may not scale quite right. So there is a tool that SmiteWorks put out that allows you to adjust for the camera mode. Otherwise, it's not going to, it's hard to say, but it basically, the image creator thing that SmiteWorks uses to make those tokens is kind of laborious. So not only are you making all this, but then you got to add this other thing. So you don't have to use it, but there's a free Unity token maker thing that's for the 3D stuff. So that's this. So if I want to create a camera token for Fantasy Grounds, what I'd want to do is use that tool, this third-party tool that they develop for their development team. This is free, by the way, and it's on the Fantasy Grounds forums. It's kind of buried in there, but if you look hard enough, you'll find it. I think it's the FG Image Metadata Builder. And essentially, you're going to take an image like that one I just showed you. So I'm going to my downloads, and what you'll do is take this image here. Why didn't I put that token in there? Probably wanted to use this top-down one too. But anyway, so I'll put that in there. But you can take this image here, this large snake image, and you put it in here. And that's basically the way you're going to scale it and set the regions. So you want to set the measurement. The clip region is out here, but you're going to set the width by, we'll say, the farthest here, and the height. So the height is up here, so we're going to click there. And now we're going to do the width. So probably, well, this is the X and Y. So probably right in here. Oops. Nope, I didn't do that right. Okay, set measurements. We're going to go here. Oops, set measurements. We're going to go up here. And then we're going to click down here. So this is kind of what you want, right? I think I didn't go far enough to the left. Set measurements. At least this line will kind of show you like where you're at. So we want to get to the top, and we want to be far enough over to the left. And then we want to click down here. There we go. Nope, still didn't do it right. That's why I'm glad they added these lines, because then you could see like where exactly to go. Okay. Set measurement. Okay, so left here, and then width down here. Oh, I messed up. Okay, so X. All right, so X and Y. There we go. So I got most of it, but see how it clipped that right there? So you got to kind of be careful with that. So that's how you set the height and the width. That's an important aspect of this. So again, set measurement region. You want to click near the top, but enough to, to capture this. So we're going to go to the top left corner. And then the bottom right corner for the, for the height and stuff. I did it again. How crazy. Let's see, is that Y? Oh man. Anyway, so that's that. And then you would hit the center floor. So the center, you're going to center it right up here. So probably right about there. That's the center floor. So this is where it's going to pivot in the camera view. Now, in height, for squares, you're going to put 2 squares. So you want it to be taller than an average person. But then in height, you can type in percentage. So for height, you're going to go, I don't know, maybe 12 and a half feet, maybe 12.4. And then you hit save XML because it's going to save this. There you go. So now what you can do is when you get this going here, you want to hit this refresh thing and go into your, let's take a look at the folder first. So we want to go with 3D NPCs. Yeah, so I don't think I used the right, let's see, view. Anyway, so you would use the XML file for this, and it has to be in the same folder as your, wherever your 3D images are. So what I want to do is make sure that the XML file or the definition file is in the same folder. So I think I did it out of the other thing, or out of the other location instead. So I want to go back in here and steal the XML file. Yeah, it's this right here. So I want to take that, and I want to make sure that it's in this folder here under my 3D. There we go. So now that's the definition for that camera view. So now what I would do is from the images under the 3D NPCs, I would drag that in there. The reason why you're doing that is so that it flips accordingly. So you want that to, to look right. So let's see what we're going to get here. So now you see it didn't update anything on here. So you're going to go to the NPC itself, which we've done. And then we went to pictures and we added the extra artwork. So it doesn't update this when you do that. So you have to right click on this and delete the NPC, and you're probably going to have to re-add it to the encounters that I made earlier. So the Snake Guardian, see, it didn't update anything here. So you're going to have to delete that, drag this back in there, and now it's going to have the proper token and the art and the changes that you made. That's something you want to be careful of. And then for testing it out here, you have it now with the correct token. So the combat tracker is a copy. Once you've drug something over there, it stays like that. It's not going to change dynamically. It's static at that point. Why is the initiative -5? Oh, it doesn't have, oh, the stats didn't come over correctly. How strange. How weird. Anyways, good thing I looked at that. So when I make changes here, and if I open up this thing here, it may not change those. So I need to delete it again. So whenever you make changes, you need to go back and fix it. Otherwise, it may not update properly. So unalign, large, summoned, yes. So if it's a summoned creature, you can actually change it to match that of the caster. But in this case, this is not an actual summon, it's the staff itself, so I'm not going to change that. All right, so to test this out, what you're going to do is when you add this back to the combat tracker, let's do that. So we're going to lock it. And here's the two images for the artwork. Now when you're going to go back and basically go to images, or in this case, I want a map of some sort. So I'll go there and we'll do the sands thing. Let's do a temple. Let's say oasis, salt mine, desert sands, rocky. There we go. Mosaic, desert, temple. There we go. So we'll use this for a map, even though it's not set up all the way. But the minimum that you want on this map is to put a grid on it. So in this case, I'm pretty sure that these are at 50 pixels per. So I'm going to go to grid and turn on the visibility. So yeah, that's right. It's all the way to the corner, so that's correct. And then I changed the tint so we can actually see the grid a little bit, because it's kind of hard to see. It's washed out there. Maybe turn it up just slightly. Okay, so there's the grid, right? I don't have anything on, like the walls set up or anything, just for the sake of time. But this is just a kind of like a test for what the token is going to look like. So now what we'll do is we'll change the view. So we want to lock the image. We're going to use this drop down so that we can change the camera view. So that's the camera view, right? So now we're going to put the NPC on the actual map. So drag and drop this on here. There we go. So that looks pretty good. Yep. And it will react to the camera. So as we move it around, if the XML file is correct, it's gonna look right. I don't know if it did it right, but basically this is the token. And then if you switch views, so if we go back to the to this view, now you're going to have this token. So that's, so far it's right. And now I'm going to put on show NPC. So there you go. So there's your view changes. If you want to get fancy, you don't have to do that, but that's just a way to check it. So that's what I would do with that. So this would be like her temple, and then that would be one of her guardians. So maybe he's standing over here. And now let's take a look at her thing. So she doesn't have a token yet, so I wouldn't put her on here yet. I'd go and work on the NPC more, give her a stand-up token and all that stuff like I was showing you earlier in Canva. So I would probably use this image here, and all I would do is, I only want that picture, but I've got like 4 different images. But what I would do here is, since she's smaller medium, this would be 256 by 256. So what I would do is go to resize and custom size. We're going to go at 256. Oops, it's too big. 256 by 256. So we know it's going to be roughly about the right size. So let's see. This is a lot of the more work part of it. Some people don't like that, but it is what it is. You gotta put in some effort if you want to do a lot of custom content. All right, so 256 by 256, we're going to copy and resize. So it's going to make a whole new design, but with a smaller framework, so it's not overly. And then here's image 2. And this is the one I want to print. And it won't print the background if I do this right. So if I hit share and go to download, and then I'm only going to pick image 2. I don't want all of them. I just want the second one. And then what we're going to do is pick, we don't want video. We're going to have to do PNG for now. and we want transparent background. So we will download that. So that's this basically, this is already sized for the 3D image tool. So then we can go and open up that image of her, of the sorceress, and we can go in and bring up the metadata tool again and do the same thing. So it's easier. See, I'm kind of jumping all over the place. It might be confusing, but this would be the process for one. If you were going to do a whole bunch of them, I would generate all the art, and then I would rename them and resize them, and then I would do this tool, and then I would import them into Fantasy Grounds. If you do this onesie twosies, it's going to take a lot longer. So if you've got a bigger project, you're going to have to organize it better than what I'm doing here, because it's just going to piss you off and take too long. All right, so this is, ooh, that doesn't look very good, like quality-wise. Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. It's probably because it's 256 by 256. So set the clip region, or no, set the, oops. That's the clip region. Set the measurements. So we want to go with width. Oops. Oh. Oh, man. I don't know what I did wrong, but anyways, that's, you'd have to go back to that tool and load that image in there and then go from there, like actually resize it, make sure that, you know, the XML file is with the image so it's defined properly. So you go like that. Oops, why didn't it drop the image back in there? Downloads. Okay. All right, so basically set the measurement. We're going to go up here all the way to the top of her hat here and out past her tail. And then we want to go with the yeah, that's not quite where I wanted it. So out here, and then there we go. And now we're going to set the center floor. So this is going to be, cut this in half basically, and set it right there on the bottom. And then for height, I think she's like fully extended, probably just like 5.5, but she's kind of curved, like arcs. It's probably taller if she stood straight up, but roughly 5.5 feet. And the expected grid is 1, because you only want 1 cube essentially. And now we're going to hit Save XML. So that's basically how you do those 3D ones if you're going to do it. I don't know if it's worth that much time or not, but it depends on what you're doing, I guess. But then you go to images, or excuse me, not images, but assets. And we'll go to images, the campaign folder. And I got to go back to the downloads folder where this existed. That's where it downloaded to. I would probably, like I said, I would do this in steps. So these two things, the file and the image, must be copied and pasted. And then we're going to go to folder, and we'll go to 3D PCs and paste that in there. So this is kind of the steps that you got to go through, you know, if you're going to do this. And then, of course, we want to refresh. You always refresh that. Now, when you bring up your NPC stat block, you want to edit this. So the Santa, and now we're going to put in her artwork and such. So we'll go to assets, and for the 3D one, and we'll use this one for the 3D token. And there we go. So that's that. Now, she doesn't have a flat token, so, you know, in a sense, I could take an image of this and blow it up and make a, you know, another image, or I can use ChatGPT to try to create something from nothing, basically. So if I go back to OpenAI or ChatGPT, go into my project file, which in this case is my Fantasy Grounds content project, and then go into the actual conversation that I was using. I'm going to use the image for inspiration again, because the original that I put back there was too far back. So I'm going to say create I'm going to say an image text prompt for a circle VTT token based on the attached. Okay, so I'm going to ask it to create a round with a golden border. I could say snake border. That'd be kind of cool. Let's see. Let's try that. Snake border based on the attached image. We'll see what it comes out with. So that's just, like I was saying, it's a lot of work, but if you want to put in that effort, that's what it's going to take. And it's a lot of work, because the real thing is like coming up, getting all the images, getting all the stat blocks and all that. It's a lot of work. And you could spend like a weekend just on images, and another weekend just on the stat blocks and stuff. I mean, it could take a while. So it depends on what you're doing. But we'll see how this comes out. So items. So what I'd want to do with this, the snake staff, is if I wanted to attach the image from the assets, you can't link an asset straight to the staff. You have to actually bring it into the images for your campaign. So I'm going to make a group here, and this is going to be called Snake Sorceress, I guess. Something like that. And then what I'll do is I'm going to add that asset into here. So create from campaign assets. I'm just going to say yes, but are you sure you want to import all these records? Yes. So that way I have them all. I don't have to dig around for them. And then there's the artwork for the staff. So what you would do is, for unidentified, you would just put snake or serpent staff. You gotta have naming consistency or it's gonna drive you nuts. And then what you do is you would set identification so that the players don't see this, they just see the description here on that's what would be shared with your players. But nonetheless, you would link that to the staff. So you would link this image down here, and that would be the image that's attached to the magic item that you give to your players. However, if you do this after you've already made a parcel, you're going to have to substitute out the updated staff with the image instead of the old one. So if I would have already attached this to a parcel, which is like treasure, and it already had this in there, the snake staff, then I'd have to go back and update it again. So that's why you want to do all the artwork you can in the beginning, because that's where a lot of the work is. Renaming, resizing, formatting, all that stuff. So now I would add it to a parcel. So this, when they get the treasure, they get the snake staff, and let's say they get 113 gold, maybe 57 silver, and 111 copper. And then maybe her poison dagger or something like that. But basically that's, this would be her loot. So we would say his Santha's loot. And again, you could attach this to her, to the parcel, to the NPC. So if you want to make this easier, like if it's kind of like a drop, like if she, if she had a drop or anything, you could do that here. So in the Notes tab, what you might do is add another section or a group. Loot. We're going to make that a bold or like a header, and you can link that here. So now when you want to award the players, instead of linking this to the map, you would link this to the NPC, so when she dies, you pop this up, and then you take this information and you could drag it to the party sheet, and it would essentially reward them with that parcel. So if you have players on there's the treasure. So this would go to the party if there was any on there. So that's kind of the different steps and why you have to do all this extra stuff. You don't necessarily have to, but that's basically the reality of it, right? Those are the different things it takes to do a conversion or to create decent looking information. So that's just something that you want to show your players, or maybe you want this to look good, or maybe it's a commercial product or an update or something to a product that's already out in the Fantasy Grounds store on the Forge. So it kind of depends on what the content is for. So now, do we have her artwork? Well, let's see. Now here's the prompt. So let's see if it'll give us a decent token to use. And again, I'm going to use this project here because it's the correct size. So I'm just going to add another blank, and then when the image is generated, I'm just going to copy and paste it over, and I'm going to export it as a transparency, and then if I need to, I can convert it to a WebP or WebM, whatever. Depends on what you're doing and what the format is, but that way you cut down on the file size. If you don't care about file size and you're making like a PDF or something, that may be different. But for Fantasy Grounds, I would convert all, if not any, of your artwork to WebP format. That way it's smaller, because it's only like a quarter to like a tenth or an eighth of the original size, roughly, depending on how many colors and how complex the image is. But going from 8 megabytes to like half a megabyte is just phenomenal. That's a really big difference. That's like, I don't know, and it still retains the quality. Unlike JPEGs, when those things, they end up looking horrible, like at lower quality, especially if you use Fantasy Grounds Classic. It just looked horrid. When you zoomed in, it was real blurry and fuzzy looking. We'll see what this looks like. Oh, how cool. So there you go. There's the token. I'm going to right click, go copy image. Come back over here, Control Victor, Control V. And that is basically the size that you want the token to be. 256 by 256. I want to shrink this a little bit. I don't want anything cut off. There, it's centered now. And I just have a little bit of a border for buffer. And now I can just hit share. Oops, download. I want this to be a PNG file in this case. This, for some reason, you can't export as WebP. I hope they add that someday, because I have to do the conversion after the fact. Transparent background, and then download. Well, you don't have to, but if you want to save room and not have to compress everything. All right, so that's basically the work, right? And also you're theming everything, right? You got the snake this, and serpent that, and sorcerers this, and magic user that. So you got a lot of different things to work with, and a lot of things to consider when you're doing these. So first of all, did it actually download? What did it do? I don't see it. Let me go to, oh, it probably downloaded as a zip file. Let me go to share, download. We only want the last page. And then we want to make sure it's PNG and transparent. There we go. I think I downloaded the whole thing instead of just the file, which I didn't want to do. What? There it is. So there's that. Put that in there. Go back here. And I wanted to bring this thing in too for a token. So copy, take those, close this. All right, so what we're going to do is go back into assets, and we're in images. We want to click on folder. I'm going to paste these in here temporarily. And Hasantha, we're going to say token or TKN underscore Hasantha. And that's actually going to go in the, what's this thing here? So this is the snake. I think this is the swarm. Let me see, view. Yeah, no, this is not the snake swarm. This is the 3D or top down. So we'll say TKN underscore, and we'll go TD for top down. So these two are actually tokens, so they don't have to go in this. They're not going in this folder. So I'm gonna take these, cut them out of here, and then go to the tokens folder and put them here. So that way they're in the correct folder. And now refresh, and then go to tokens, and then go to the campaign, and then drag the appropriate one over. So we want that one to be her flat token, and we want this one to be the camera token, and this is the artwork token, or the artwork picture. Now we can lock this, put her on the combat tracker, go back to the map, and let's put her in her throne. So take Hasantha, we're going to put her visibility on. So drag and drop her there. So that's her basically on her throne. And then what we could do is, like I said, we could switch to this camera view. Now that's basically what you have. So there's her guardian, and there's Hasantha. So it looks right because it scaled this to double the height, basically, of this NPC. So that's right. That looks pretty cool. So if I wanted to at this point, I can add more props. Like I can add light here, add the walls, maybe add an asset here, like a tree. So instead of having just this painted asset, I can go into the top-down ones, if you have those, and put like a palm tree or something here, or ferns. You know, you can really, and then this water here, you can actually take and add the water layer to the image. You don't want to add too many layers, but it does give it movement. So if you were gonna make this look a lot neater, we can go into the map tools and start. I might do a little bit of that while I'm here. I don't got anything else going on. Sorry for the length of the video. I just get excited and I just want to do stuff, you know. So here, like the braziers may want a little movement also. So let's see. So we want to go into unlocking this. This gives you access to the map tools. Right now this layer is locked, so we want to unlock it. So now they've added this little indicator here, so when it's locked you can tell. And then when you unlock it, now it's white. So that helps you understand that. This helps you so you can edit and add things. Otherwise it's going to give you some problems. So we're going to go to objects, I think, tiles, and let's go to assets, and I want to do images, and then let's go to tree. Maybe not a good search term because there's probably going to be a million trees. So you got to kind of be careful with the search. It depends on, you know, how many of these assets you have. Okay, so images. And let's go with, let's try palm. Okay, so there's some palm trees. So you could do something like that and kind of overlay it. Or if you were going to use the 3D stuff, if you have the art subscription or a art subscription, you could put that in there and you could get these stand-up looking trees. I wonder where those went though. That's the thing about this is like I forget. And if you don't know the name of the asset, it's really hard to figure out what. Let's try 3D. Yeah, that's not really helping. But anyway, so you could do that and add movement stuff to your screen here. So we were going to add water. So I got sidetracked. So effects, use a drop down and go to water. And you see the whole map is going like that. You don't want that. So what you're going to do is you're going to add a mask or enable the mask, which basically covers over that. And you're just going to unveil or remove the mask from the areas where you want the water to come alive. And the only way to really draw this in freehand is to hit Control, I believe. Nope, not Control, but Alt. So the Alt button allows you to kind of draw it in by hand. You have to hold the Alt button down. You can't make other shapes. You can make squares and rectangles, but you can't really do much else. So that's basically just to make the water kind of come to life if you want that much detail. And then like for these things, you can put like animated flames on there if you wanted. So let's see, go to assets, go to, we'll say animated. Okay, so we want to go to animated. You got to make sure you spell it right or it's going to give you grief. Unless the person who set it up misspelled it. That's another issue. So there's, let's see, animated fire. All right, so you could take something like this, like these braziers over here, and you can add those to kind of give it some life. Maybe there's a brazier, but you could do that to give it that flame look if you wanted to. So what I would do is click on this map itself, the image, and then take these and drag and drop them into the tile mode. That way you have more control. If you just drop it on, you're not going to know the size of it initially. So what I'll do is I'll take and drag that up there. And see, that's really big. That's like 8 something. So I only want it to be like maybe 1.5. Now when I take this, it makes more sense. Let's go with 2. Yeah, let's try that. Let's see. Oops, Control Z. I want to recenter the map, so let's go here. We're going to drop one of those tile things on here. Not sure why it's not showing up. It's showing up here. Let's go to, I don't know what's going on, but it should be showing here. I don't know why it is or isn't, but maybe it's because I don't have walls or set up or something. But nonetheless, that's, you can add stuff like that. Let's try the palm tree. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's been a while since I used asset pack, so I got to go back through them and figure out what's what. But basically, you can add to your maps to make them more interesting and make them look more like they're alive instead of really static. So, anyways, so that's kind of like your theme, right? You got themed dice, themed snakes, the color background's kind of themed, your maps are themed. That just kind of gives you something to build towards. And then maybe you'll make a snake cult member. So I might ask the Fantasy Grounds to create a, or ChatGPT, let's see, create an NPC stat block for a serpent cultist in the Fantasy Grounds format. And say they are armed with hide and wield, let's say they are armored. They're armored with hide and wield snake maces, like it's kind of like a something like that. And they are CR, we'll say half, something like that. So that way you can, have some lower level minions, something to carry out the duty of the temple. And we might make like a fanatic, like someone who a CR5 or a CR3 or something. Cultist. So serpent cultist is another stat block that you might make, depending on what you're trying to do. But yeah, so let me look at this, because this was giving me trouble. So whenever you have apostrophe, it seems like, or something like that, so far it doesn't look like anything too crazy. Let's see what we got here. Serpent cultist. So we can go back into NPCs, and again we can import the text, provided it's right. Right click, clean up text, and then there was a little blurb on there that I might grab there. So yeah, information. So this has their loot and gear listed, so if you want to include that, you can. So I want to go right click, clean up the text. We're going to highlight the text, go to Control-2 to make that, and then these things, these little sub menus here, I'll just make these bold. All right, so appearance: a wild-eyed cultist clad in rough hide armor, adorned with serpent symbols and wielding a mace carved with fang-like studs that drip venom. Attacks recklessly in groups, relying on their numbers and poison damage to overwhelm foes. Use Serpent's Lash when surrounded. Otherwise, press with Snake Mace. And then they have the mace. It's non-magical, but it has poison tips. And then they're wearing hide, basically snakeskin armor. Serpent Charms worth 15 gold. So this is their Snake Devotion, and then they have Fanatical Zeal. They have the Snake Mace. There's the damage, and the Serpent's Lash must be something unique to them. So the cultist swings the mace in a wild arc. Each creature of its choice within 5 feet has to make a dex save or take 5 bludgeoning damage. So they just kind of go nuts. It's kind of cool. Let's see what happens, though. And again, I got to make sure I pick the right import mode. So this one looks good. I think so far. I don't see a lot of problems here. Yeah, see, it's not importing the the stat block right, so that's a problem. So that what you have to do then is go back and take a look at this and see this may not be right. This formatting here. So again, I have to make an adjustment based off of that type of thing, but I can manually go in and change those, but there's a problem there because it should import these properly, but it's not. So if you wanted to get that information correct, you could go to like the Fantasy Grounds Discord and ask around, say, hey, you know, what's the format here? So I can go back to some conversations that are not too old under the support channel, and going back through here, they posted a see, that's the one bad thing about using this, is that if it's not on the forums, it's really hard because it scrolls away. And that's really the NPC format. Try that. So I'm just joining, let's see, this is 5e. But anyways, they have different posts that really cover a lot of things. The problem is that, see here, they were talking about, anyways, I'm gonna have to go back through here and see what the new formatting is, because they had it all spelled out like line for line. Let me try line. I know that's how they did it. Yeah, I'll have to go back and find it. But basically, here we go. So this is the thing. So this right here is a really good example. So this is the thing that you'd want to have to create your template for Fantasy Grounds. And I have a feeling that ChatGPT is not doing it right. Something's not right. So when you one little thing off and it won't parse it correctly. So I'm kind of being picky here, but I want you to see what is going on with this so that, you know, if you do this in the future, you're not going to scratch your head and say, that guy's an idiot. Because it's something that you're going to come across sooner or later if you're going to use the import tool. All right, so let's see what happens here. I'm going to try it again. So what I want to do is, you know what? I have juice here. I think I'm going to pin. Actually, no. I better ask before I do that. But nonetheless, I can ask to pin that. So I think I got yelled at last time I did that. But anyways, I'm going to take and get rid of that NPC Guardian. The cultists, see, the stats didn't come across correctly and some of the other things. So I want to delete that. Start over and see if I can get it going again properly. So here, make sure you're in the right mode. So core rules, right click, clean up text. It looks right to me. I mean, I don't see, is it I don't know. I want to say that the initiative should be up here. I think that's what's missing. Look. Because it's happened to me before. Import. Yeah, so the initiative needs to be that second line. So I want to go back here because I think it's supposed to be right here. I want to say, look at the template provided in the uploaded project files, because I gave it exact formatting, and reformat the stat block. the initiative is not right. Something like that. So it's just about right, but it's not quite there. So again, this is something that you have to keep messing with, because that's basically what all it takes is just that one little thing to be missing or in the wrong place. It'll jack up the whole import. So anyways, I don't want to spend much more time on that. I hope this helps a little bit. I know I went over a lot of stuff, kind of jumped around, but I wanted you to see the work and the effort and the inspiration and the tools and all that. You know, there's a lot to cover. I could make a kind of a breakdown, because some people don't want to watch the whole video just to find the one little thing, but that's essentially the work that it takes. And you know, if you're going to use a ChatGPT or whatever, you got to have a decent template. And I do. Let me see where my template is. Template. Say NPC template. Yeah, see, this is the old one. So this is the legacy. So that's not the one I want, because that one will be good for the older. If you're still using the 2014, it will help you with that. So NPC stat block template. Now. $2025. Huh. Anyways, I have a project file for this. So if I go into my projects, it should, I don't know why it does this, but occasionally it'll freeze up on you. Yeah, I think it gets too hung up. Like if you have too many project files, or if ChatGPT is busy, I guess is the way to put it, you're going to get that occasionally. Yeah, see, here we go. So initiative, it's supposed to be, that's supposed to be there. That's why it didn't. I think that's the reason why. So I'm going to try that one more time. Let's see what's going on here. So again, I want to get rid of the serpent cultist because it didn't import correctly. And then instead of closing this, you just can leave it open and delete the text. Then right click, clean up text. And then I wanted that. I don't care about the background right now. Let's just see if the stat block imports. Yeah, that's all it was. So it was missing the initiative line. So I don't know how that happened because I gave it the correct format. But this right here, it was just missing this little part right here. I didn't even notice it right away. This has happened to me before, this exact scenario, but I didn't know that, you know, that was what was causing it. But that's all it takes, is one little silly thing like that. So anyways, we got that imported into Fantasy Grounds, and if I want to grab that background, I can put it in later. See, there's your habitat, your treasure, pictures. But anyway, so you got like a cultist now. So you have like this whole scenario that you can build upon. Now you can get into lore. What I thought was interesting for this particular character is I had a table, but then I'm just going to ask it to, close Discord. I'm going to ask it to, it meaning ChatGPT, I want to say reprint the dialogue quotes for the serpent sorceress. Say not the table yet. When are we going to say rollable lists? Always say rollable list, not the rollable list. I call it a rollable list because, again, if you say table, then it's going to assume a formatted table. I don't want a formatted table. I just want a list with the correct syntax for Fantasy Grounds import. So it's going to search the project files. Why, I don't know why. Let's say I couldn't. What? No. Say look at our previous conversations here. Because I did have some quotes, some things that I wanted, some dialogue. So when you're running the character or the NPC, it will give you like just a dozen or half a dozen dialogue quotes. Okay, so here's what I was talking about, this stuff here. So again, going back to the backside of the character. Now this is kind of getting excessive, right? This is a little much, but if you wanted to, you can really flesh these things out and put everything in one little package. Like right here, I can add more stuff, and unfortunately there's going to be a lot of scrolling, so you got to be careful how much of this stuff you put in here. But basically, I'm going to clean up this text, and then we're going to make a section called dialogue. And this is the stuff that you may not want, but it's there in case you need it, type thing. Like I said, a lot of things I do is contingencies, right? I'd hate being hung out to dry if I have like writer's block or whatever. So when encountered, when using charm or illusion, when summoning snakes or fighting, if players negotiate, and dying words. So these are basically little sayings, like, and then I can format this into the, I can format this into the box text so that you can send those out to chat for your players. So I'm just going to change these little quotes, these little sayings, into usable dialogue boxes, so that way you can send it out to your chat when you're playing. So if you're doing some role playing, this might come in handy. So when they encountered, hostile but composed, click that. It'll say who said it, or you get the idea. And what you do is you can click on this part, speak as, up here, and then click on it, and it should technically, oh, I see. Okay, so I don't know why it's, I guess if you have to do it like this from here. But anyways, if you want or Hasantha, you can send these little blocks out. The sands remember the hiss of my people. You will kneel or you will feed the dust. Or how curious, little mortal slithered in my den. Do you seek wisdom or do you crave venom? So these are just little sayings, if you wanted to add those to your campaign. But that's helpful if you don't have anything made up on the spot, or you're having a bad day. So anyways, I'm gonna go. I've said that like 20 times. I'm really going this time. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Try making some content.